trigger warning before we start because obviously both of the main topics of today's session can be quite triggering, can't they? Alcohol and, of course, miscarriage. So, if you are interested in this, but a little bit stressed that it might trigger you, please know that this video will be available to you to watch later on if you prefer. And also, please know that if any of this does trigger you, I'm available so you can DM me. Please don't feel guilty about that. This really is my pleasure and my privilege to be able to do this here in the GGC. So let's just get started without many more preamble from me. What I'm going to do here is read word for word the post that came in through the GGC this week. Okay. And I'm spending quite a bit of time on this post because it really, really speaks to so many of the women that I talk to. So I'll read the post first and then we'll actually get stuck into it. Okay, so this was from an anonymous poster and she has said, I'm really looking for others' experience with no judgment, please. My partner and I have been trying for a baby for 5 years now and have had all the tests and nothing seems to be wrong. Unexplained infertility is all they have said. I also have really irregular periods. This, alongside other stressful stuff going on in my life, work, and my own family, has resulted in me becoming probably a bit too reliant on alcohol to cope. Bottle of wine every night, sort of thing. I know that and absolutely would never drink whilst pregnant, and that's an absolute no no, but I can't seem to find any conclusive research on whether or not there is medical evidence that alcohol consumption can stop you conceiving at all. I have now stopped drinking completely and using more holistic methods of stress relief, and I have a really stressful job at a law firm. But I don't want to get my hopes up that this could be the change that gets me pregnant and will be let down again. Does anyone have any experience of stopping drinking and reducing stress and then conceiving naturally? Thanks so much. So the reason that this post, I did reply to this post in the comments, but I thought, no, let's actually spend quite a bit of time on this on the live as well, because I speak to women in very similar situations to what's just been described on a weekly basis. So when we're struggling to conceive, we become very, very stressed. We work really hard, which is very, very stressful. And every now and again, it can be really, really helpful just to wind down, have a lovely crispy glass of wine, and watch Netflix. And that just helps us wind down. But very often, it works too well, doesn't it? And then we finish the bottle the next day. And then within a few weeks, it becomes half a bottle a night. And then within a few weeks after that, it becomes a whole bottle a night. And the first sentence of this post, the poster says, no judgment, please. So the first thing I really want to touch on is please don't judge yourself. I speak to a lot of women who are in high stress careers. I speak to a lot of women who know that they're drinking more than they should be for their ability to conceive. So please, please, please do not get hung up on people judging you or your own guilt, because honestly, all that's going to do is increase those stress levels and possibly even make you want to start drinking even more or again. So absolutely congratulations that you've kind of nipped that in the bud. But I actually want to spend most of the time on this call answering your specific question about alcohol and how it absolutely can affect your ability to conceive. Okay, so we're going to look at the various aspects of reproductive health here, including hormone balance, egg quality, inflammation, stress levels, and your overall body health. I will be referencing a couple of studies, but I'm also going to be giving real life examples. And again, just before we kind of go into this, I want to stress that there's absolutely no judgment. I know many, many women in this group. I am in the business group and they know that I myself like a drink, okay? So I am not judging anyone when I am talking facts here. There's never any judgment. In fact, there's no room for judgment when it comes to trying to conceive because, frankly, it's hard enough. Okay, so first thing we're going to talk about is hormone balance in your menstrual cycle. And the original poster here has already mentioned that she has an irregular menstrual cycle. Okay, so alcohol, particularly kind of bottle of wine a night or binge drinking, does have significant ability to disrupt that delicate balance of kind of reproductive hormones. So the ones that we know really well, alcohol can increase your estrogen levels, and that can lead potentially to estrogen dominance and interfering with ovulation. So that can basically mean that you're producing too much estrogen, and then meaning that can mean that you're not actually able to release an egg in the middle of your cycle. Similarly, but also the opposite to this, it can decrease your progesterone levels. So, say you don't have estrogen dominance and you do manage to ovulate, and say you do manage to conceive, say you actually do, the sperm meets the egg, alcohol consumption can actually decrease your progesterone, which can mean that even if you do manage to fall pregnant, there can be difficulties with creating enough progesterone for that to implant and for you to stay pregnant. Okay, so these imbalances, they can often result in an irregular menstrual cycle and decreased fertility. The best example of that I can give you is a study published in the British Medical Journey, and that finds that women who consumed 1 to 5 drinks per week had a 39% chance, a lower chance of conceiving compared to non-drinkers. So 1 to 5 drinks per week, not per night, and that's indicating a 39% lower chance per cycle. And that is a very, very well studied paper. The other thing that you should probably be aware of is how alcohol can impact the pituitary gland and specifically insulin management. So your pituitary gland is crucial for producing your fertility hormones like FSH, which is your follicle stimulating hormone, and LH, which is your luteinizing hormone. And these can be suppressed by chronic alcohol consumption. Again, there's no judgment. When I use the word chronic, I am not saying you're a chronic alcohol abuser, not by any means. So that word, just take that with a bit of a pinch of salt. But consuming alcohol regularly can absolutely affect your pituitary gland. Oh my goodness, I really should have had a second cup of coffee before this call. So the study I've got here in alcohol and alcoholism, and that's the name of the study, and that's found that alcohol intake can lead to reduced LH levels and that potentially disrupts ovulation. It can also induce insulin resistance, and that's associated with hormone imbalances. And of course, that can exacerbate conditions like PCOS, or if you happen to have type 2 diabetes or be on the verge of type 2 diabetes. The other way that alcohol can affect our fertility and our ability to conceive is that it absolutely increases oxidative stress, which can lead to DNA damage in eggs. So if you've seen any of my videos before, and I do encourage you to go to my page in the GGC YouTube channel, I talk extensively about egg quality. We can't do anything about the amount of eggs that we've got, but we can absolutely manage and improve the quality of our eggs. Okay, so the poorer the quality of our eggs, the less chance they're going to make it through that DNA fragmentation and become an embryo, but also the higher chance, if we have a poorer quality egg, the higher chance we have of miscarriage. So, a study in human reproduction found that women who consume more than 14 alcoholic drinks per week had a significantly higher rate of chromosomal abnormalities in their eggs. Okay, so we know that alcohol depletes the body's essential nutrients needed for egg health, such as folate, zinc, antioxidants, and research has shown that even moderate alcohol intake can reduce folate levels, and that potentially, of course, affects egg quality and increases the risk of birth defects. We also know, here's that word again, chronic, but chronic alcohol use can lead to premature ovarian aging. And a study, and this is an American study, the Journal of Epidemiology, found that heavy alcohol consumption was associated with earlier onset of menopause suggesting a negative impact on ovarian reserve. Next, we'll move on to inflammation. Okay, so alcohol induced inflammation can really have far reaching effects on our health and our fertility. So, if we if we are using alcohol on a very regular basis, that can increase systematic inflammation and that can negatively impact our reproductive health. So, a study in the Journal of Endocrinology found that alcohol induced inflammation can disrupt basically our hormone production and our fertility, and that's all coming down to inflammation. Inflammation in reproductive organs can interfere with implantation, early embryo development, and researchers showed that alcohol induced inflammation specifically can alter the uterine environment, potentially reducing the chances of potential implantation. It can also infect the liver, disrupting hormone metabolism and detoxification process, and that's crucial for fertility. Number four is stress. And this is something that the original poster has already touched on. So she is a very busy lady. She's dealing with family issues. I think she mentioned that she works in a really busy law firm. Again, I talk to women like you very, very regularly, so I get it. And the relationship with alcohol and stress and fertility is all very complex. So while we might use alcohol to relax and it's useful for it, it actually does increase the cortisol levels in the body. Okay, this has been found time and time again. Alcohol consumption leads to increased cortisol production, and we know that that can interfere with our reproductive hormone balance. It can disrupt the release of our GnRH or luteinizing hormone or FSH, all crucial for ovulation. And we know that stress induced hormonal changes can lead to anovulation, which is where we simply don't ovulate. So the stress of trying to conceive itself can actually lead to increased alcohol consumption. And this is what I was talking about at the start. It starts off with one glass of wine once a week, Netflix and chill. That becomes two, that becomes finishing the bottle. And I see this all the time. You would not believe how often I saw it actually in during the virus, during COVID. It was like the perfect cocktail. Nobody had to drive the next morning. All of the hobbies were cancelled. We were sitting around stressing out our nut about the end of the world. Have a glass of wine, have another glass of wine, have another glass of wine. So it really, really is kind of is self-inducing, isn't it? What tends to happen is we drink to relieve the stress and it works really well. This is what alcohol does. It very quickly releases our dopamine levels. It helps us chill. But that is a really, really short term way to look at it. And that's just in the now. Let's now think about what happens the next day. The next day we wake up with a dry mouth. We might have a sore head, not necessarily hungover, but we might just feel a bit shitty and none too fresh. And then we think to ourselves, why did I do that? I know that I'm trying to conceive. I know that I shouldn't be having wine, beer, vodka. I know that I shouldn't be doing that. Why do I keep making these mistakes? Why do I keep falling into this cycle? And then what we tend to do, and this is all related to stress and how we talk to ourselves, isn't it? Is beat ourselves up. I'm so annoyed at myself for doing that. I'm definitely not doing that again tonight. I'm going to get up. I can't believe I'm doing this to myself. I'm sabotaging myself. And then we spend the day dehydrated, tired, really down on ourselves, really lacking in that self-love. And we go out and we probably don't have the greatest day. And then we come home and we just think, well, that was a shit day anyway. I might as well open a bottle of wine, and round and round and round it goes. Now, I'm not advertised, I actually don't even drink wine. I'm not saying by any means that this is an effective solution, but it is common. And the reason I'm really stressing this is because the original poster did talk about judgment. And I want to really touch on yes, other people's judgment is one thing, but the most important thing is judging ourselves or not judging ourselves. If we wake up and we beat ourselves up and we give ourselves a verbal kicking, it's actually probably more likely that we'll go home and do the same thing again or go out to happy hour with the team. So we really, really need to think about today's actions, how that affects our tomorrow, and then how that affects tomorrow night's outcomes. Okay. And also, we know as well that if we wake up feeling quite shitty, we're less likely to want to take our supplements. We're less likely to want to have that lovely, protein and veg filled breakfast. On and on and on it goes. It really is a house of cards. Okay. The next alcohol related thing that I want to touch on is just BMI and our general body health. Now, again, as you know, I'm not into body shaming. The facts are, if we are at a healthy level of body fat, which doesn't mean BMI, but that's what the NHS use. If we have a healthy level of body fat, then we are more likely to be able to conceive. There's strong correlations between BMI and difficulty conceiving, and the studies in human reproduction are finding that for every unit increase in BMI over 29, the chance of conception is decreased by about 4%. Okay, now I do not know who the original poster is. I do not think or assume that she is overweight by any means, but I feel like we can't talk about alcohol consumption and its relation to fertility without touching on its relation to BMI. Alcohol is calorie dense and it can absolutely contribute to weight gain. Okay? We know that regular alcohol consumption is associated with an increased waist circumference and BMI. And when our body is processing alcohol, it slows down the digestive systems and other essential bodily functions. So we do have plenty of research showing that alcohol metabolism takes precedence over other metabolic processes, potentially affecting nutrient absorption and hormonal balance, which means that real life scenario, we can wake up, we can have that lovely, those chia seeds, we can have avocado for breakfast, we can have plenty of protein, massive, beautiful, big, fresh salad, all organic, and then a lovely salmon or, a very, very healthy, very, very fertility optimal meal. And then we could have it with half a bottle of wine, and because our body is busy processing that alcohol, it's actually not processing all of the wonderful nutrients, both macro and micro, that we have fed ourselves that day. So it's not just about BMI, it's about how it can affect our body's ability to absorb the other good nutrients that we are probably taking in throughout that day. There's no doubt as well that alcohol can disrupt sleep patterns, and that again can lead, we always come back to hormonal imbalances. Hormonal imbalances we know can affect fertility. And the last study I'm going to cite here is a study in the Journal of Sleep found that alcohol consumption before bed can lead to disrupted sleep patterns and altered hormone production. Okay, so I know that the original poster was looking for facts, so I could sit here and spin, my opinions all day long, but this is why I'm referring to so many of these studies. An original poster, you're very, very welcome to get in touch with me and I can send you the details of these studies as well. Just want to conclude this. The impact of alcohol on female fertility is multifaceted and it is significant, okay? It can pose serious challenges if you're trying to conceive. But what I really want to stress is I can see, and it's not difficult to see, how the stress of infertility can actually contribute to you consuming more alcohol. So please do not beat yourself up. And I'm so happy for you and pleased for you that you have noticed that this is potentially an issue and that you've already taken steps to change that. What I would say is do not expect miracles overnight. Please don't think that because, if you stop drinking in the first day of your period, that automatically means that you will fall pregnant that cycle. These things do take time, and egg quality change we know takes at least 3 months. So please do stick with it. And please also don't beat yourself up if you decide to have, one glass of wine. Sometimes weaning ourselves off of things is the best way of doing it, or allowing ourselves to still have that odd treat. And remember, there's a massive, massive difference between one bottle of wine a night and having some Prosecco once or twice a month when you're out with the girls. It's not the same thing. Okay? So next we're going to move on to another question we've had this week, which again, I see versions of this really, really often. I'm going to read this out, and again, I'm just going to put out another wee trigger warning because if you are currently dealing with miscarriage, or if you're still, dealing with the aftermath of miscarriage, this may be triggering for you. So please feel free to close this down if you don't want to watch it. While I'm reading this next one out, I'd love to hear anyone who's watching this's thoughts on alcohol consumption, how to come down from it, how the most effective ways to stop. Whether you agree, whether you disagree, this is very much an open forum. So the next post we're going to talk about here. Hi girls, trigger warning, babies and miscarriage. I just found out today that I am pregnant again after having an early pregnancy miscarriage last month. Trust me, I'm absolutely shocked as I did not expect it to happen this cycle. In actual fact, I think we only had one go of it through all the grief. My question is, does anyone have any advice on how to cope with the anxiety until I get to the 12-week mark and out of the peak danger zone? I'm trying to hold off on any excitement until this one sticks, and every time I feel any kind of twinge or anything happening in my body, I stop breathing out of fear. So this was the original post, and I'm going to kind of give my steps and my take on it. The first thing I'll say just before I go into my advice is congratulations on conceiving. Again, that is absolutely, absolutely wonderful news. Okay. The first thing I would say, the first piece of advice I would give you is to acknowledge your feelings. It's okay to feel anxious, it's okay to feel scared. In fact, given what you've been through, it would probably be a bit bizarre if you weren't scared. So acknowledge the feelings, talk about them, but focus on the present. All right. So try your very best to take one day at a time. If you start to stress, your response to yourself is, I'm pregnant right now. I'm absolutely delighted I'm pregnant right now. I'm absolutely over the moon to be pregnant right now. Now, you've mentioned here that you started stopping breathing out of fear. So, the next thing I want to talk about is just kind of immediate things that you can do, like grounding techniques to help you stop going into panic attack or help you really, really manage that breathing. Okay, because these things can grow arms and legs, that can become learned behavior. So, a really, really good technique when you feel anxious is to practice grounding techniques. All right. So, focus on your breath. The most basic way to do that is box breathing. So, you breathe in for 4, you hold that for 4, you breathe out for 4, and you hold that for 4. And you do that 8 to 10 times until you can feel your heart stop. Sorry, not stop. Till you can feel your heart slow down and regulate. Another really useful thing that you can do anywhere, anytime, is practice the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. And that's where you want to, wherever you are, if you're on the subway, if you're in the car, if you're in a business meeting, if you're sitting chatting to your pals, identify 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. That doesn't mean that you need to go up and touch all 4 of those things and taste that 1 thing. But this is us just triggering your other senses and giving you something to concentrate on to really ground yourself. And I cannot express the more often you do this, how much easier it gets. Of course, you can seek support, connect with your partner or a friend, or of course, there's many, many groups. I run some groups, but there are more specific ones specifically for dealing with trauma after miscarriage. You don't need to go through this alone. Okay. So I want to talk a wee minute about a technique called reframing. Okay, and this is where we identify these thoughts and we really explore them and we replace them with facts. Okay, so I'm going to give the current statistics on miscarriage. Now, I want to preface this by saying, in my opinion, we do not have nearly enough information on the numbers around miscarriage. It's not studied enough. It's also very difficult to study. But so all we can refer to is what we have at the moment. But I do feel like the numbers, I don't think these numbers are correct. But again, it's the best that we've got to go on. So currently, the state likelihood of miscarriage in a first pregnancy is 10 to 15%. Okay? But it is estimated that if you have already had one miscarriage, this risk will go up, but only very slightly to 20%. Okay? So, whilst our minds can convince us, and if we let it reel, that this is definitely going to happen again, the best thing we can do is practice rephrasing. So, I'm going to kind of talk you through, I'm going to do an example of rephrasing here on this live session. Okay? So, the first thing we do is notice the thought. We do not try to wash that thought away. Our instinct is probably, oh no, I'm not giving that time of day. But this, we're going to do the opposite here. Notice the thought and acknowledge it, because if we don't, the chances are it's going to live in our head rent free. And now we actually analyze what it's saying. What's this inner critic saying to us? Now, again, this might be triggering, so please, if this is triggering you, please just move on and come back at a time that's better for you. Some of the things that I hear from my clients time and time again are the thoughts telling them, I'm definitely going to lose this baby. This has happened before, it's likely to happen again. If this happens to me again, I can't cope. Now, if these are the thoughts that are going through your head, if you've got it in you, write these down and then spend time asking if it's logically true. Once we get these thoughts out of our head and onto a bit of paper, it kind of gives them less power, doesn't it? Because we can look at them and think, is this a fact? Or is this anxiety? Is this fear talking? And the next thing we want to do is answer each one, but logically, and as if we were talking to our best friend. So, the first example I gave you, I'm definitely going to lose this baby. Is this a fact? Absolutely not. It is absolutely not a fact that you are definitely going to lose this baby. But if you let that stay in your head, the more you say it, the realer it can become. The next example that I gave you, this has happened before, so it's likely to happen again. Again, that is not a fact. The fact is, yes, you might have lost a baby before, but it does not mean that you are likely to lose it again. There might be a very slightly higher chance, a 5 to 10% higher chance, but you are statistically still not likely to lose this baby. Statistically, you are likely to continue this pregnancy. There is still an 80% chance that you will not lose this baby. Do you see the difference there between I'm definitely going to lose this baby, living rent free in our head, going round and round and round, versus us nipping that in the bud and saying, no, I'm not definitely going to lose this baby. There's nothing to say that I'm definitely going to lose this baby. That is not a fact, that is fear. And then just acknowledging the difference between likely, possible, really using the facts and the statistics. So next, now that we've answered each one, as if we were speaking to our best friend, we're going to write that response down individually. No, I'm definitely not going to lose this baby. Statistically, I'm likely to have a healthy pregnancy. I am pregnant right now and I'm delighted about it. While there might be a higher chance than last time, the chances are I am going to keep this baby. It is more likely that I'm going to stay pregnant and have a successful pregnancy than that I will lose it. So make it strong, make it factual, and read it a few times. And that's when the real work begins. From there, you start repeating that to yourself. Anytime this intrusive thought comes into your head, no, that is not a fact. This is the fact. Every time it happens, we answer ourselves with the facts, don't we? And then that over time will that will become the narrative in our heads instead of the fearful voice, which is making us really, really stressed, really understandably upset, triggered, traumatized. The facts comes, that is what is talking, and then in comes the optimism, and we begin to talk to ourselves like a realist. Okay. So the next thing I would suggest is to create good stressors for yourself. Okay, so we talk a lot about, oh, don't stress, stress is bad for pregnancy, but saying don't stress to someone who is already stressed can actually make them very stressed. The way I like to talk about it is create the good stressors and keep yourself busy with them. Okay? So instead of trying not to stress about having another miscarriage, give yourself a daily or a weekly list of things that you are going to do to look after yourself. Look after your mind, look after your body, ensure you're eating well, ensure you're getting enough rest, engaging in gentle exercise if your doctor approves of that. Your stressors become good things, things that you are managing to keep you healthy. Okay. The other thing, and I cannot stress this enough, it's never been more relevant than right now, is to limit your exposure to triggers. Stay off of Mumsnet. Stay off of the Tommy's website. Stay off of the news. These things are bringing you back to that dark place. They're bringing you back to that place of fear, that scared place. Just turn the news off. It's not helping you. Okay? Even like protect this video here. If this video is stressing you out, please leave. Don't finish it. Find the things that bring you joy. For me, it's sitting watching Friends, it's reading a book, it's going for a walk. Find what your things are and fill your time with that. Okay? Avoid the things that are very obviously going to trigger you. And then the last piece of advice I would give this original poster and anyone else in this situation is to create for yourself small milestones. We can all be very guilty of getting caught up with this 12 weeks because we know at 12 weeks the statistics of having another miscarriage come down by quite a bit. However, every day that you have stayed pregnant is a reason to celebrate. Every week, allow yourself to sit and think, oh, I've got something the size of a grape inside me that I have grown. I'm so happy. I'm so excited to be pregnant right now. I cannot wait to meet my baby. Allow yourself to be excited in the now. It's not about being scared of what's going to happen tomorrow. Right now, I'm pregnant. Right now, I am delighted. Right now, I couldn't be prouder of my body. Right now, I trust my body and I trust that I'm doing everything right to keep my baby safe, to keep my body pregnant. All right. Now, I don't see any comments just yet, and I was quite confident there would be actually. But what I'm going to do is ask anyone who wants to join this conversation. Firstly, please do. Secondly, please tag me. So tag my private page, which is Claire L. Innes, just to make sure that I see it. Again, that's whether you agree, disagree, whatnot. And if you have any questions, tag me in the comments. I will get back to you and I will give you my advice or my take on your question. This has been a super, super fun session. I know it has been, really quite real, but that's what we're about at the Fertility Mentor. We know that it's not all sunshine and roses and storks. And sometimes thinking that that's the way it is for other people can make it feel harder for us in the now. So I hope you've enjoyed this session. I hope that you've taken some useful information from it. And again, if you need me, just reach out. DMs are always open. Have an absolutely super day, and I will catch you later on. Bye.